Welcome to Buckets. I am your Friday host, Brandon Anderson, here with Jim Turvey. The season tips Tuesday night. This is your season preview, or as we are calling it, Jim, the season preview futures blitz extravaganza. Here's the plan. Hold on to your seatbelts. We're going for a ride. 30 teams, one future for every team from each one of us in under an hour. That's 60 futures bets in an hour. We're going to whip through a lot of these bets. Are on other podcasts already on Buckets. A lot of them are in written form. You can find more there. You're getting the bullet point version here. We will go through teams in order, mostly from lowest to highest win total. We'll kind of explain as we go. We broke them into 3 tiers. Jim helped us organize the tiers. Jim, we already know you. I'm not introducing you. We're just jumping right into this thing. Starting with our bottom tier of 10 teams. These are the 10 worst win total teams, but we ranked them from 30 to 21, how likely we will watch the team. Sorry to the Washington Wizards. You're first on the list. The least watchable, worst team in the league. Jim, what's your futures bet?
The only thing that's going to draw me here is Alex Sarr. So my bet, Sarr to win Rookie of the Year, plus 900 at DraftKings. Forget the Summer League. Let's overhype the preseason. Sarr looked terrible in the Summer League, looked really strong in the preseason so far. The biggest thing to me here is that they're clearing space for him already. There's already rumors of him either, having separate time from Jonas Valanciunas or maybe even starting while Valanciunas comes off the bench. They're finally doing things right. They're clearing out space for a young player to really get the role. I think Edey is overpriced right now. So I think Alex Sarr at plus 900 Rookie of the Year, one of the ways you can pay attention to the Wizards if you so want to.
If you don't want to and just want to rack up the losses, I'm going to go with worst record in the league, plus 255 at DraftKings. This honestly is the worst team I've ever evaluated in my Buckets career. I have them at 9-73 projected. Now, I wouldn't bet them to do that, but that's how bad the net rating is. Last in offense, last in defense. Little thing here, they are number 1 in pace last year. Love that. Love that for tanking. If you're going to be bad real fast, and you're going to lose a lot of games. They lost in the last 2 seasons. Danny Avdia, Tyus Jones, Daniel Gafford, Bradley Beal, Kristaps Porzingis, Rui Hachimura, Monty Morris. They replaced them with, Malcolm Brogdon, who's hurt already, Valanciunas, who's fine. We're going to get a lot of Jordan Poole. We're going to get a lot of the young guys, Bob Carrington, Alex Sarr, Bilal Coulibaly. Maybe we're underrating why to watch. It's fun to watch the young guys, but age 20 and under, if you're getting a lot of those guys, it's probably not going to go well. Worst record for Washington, Alex Sarr for you. Brooklyn Nets are up next. We have very little to say about this team. We're talking Cam Thomas bets. What's yours?
Yeah, this might be my least favorite of the 30 bets for the team that I think I actually had ranked. We did a composite ranking of who we don't want to watch. I think I might have had the Nets last on mine, and this is probably my least favorite bet on it. I'm going to bet Cam Thomas 28 plus at plus 650 DraftKings. You have a fun one that kind of ties into the ceiling of Cam Thomas. I don't want to lay minus 110 on a really fluky player to average over 24.5 points. Let's get a little funky with it. Sadly, he's been not very chucky in the preseason, so I'm hoping that goes away and he goes back to his chucking ways. But if you get plus 650, there's a little, the ceiling of it. I will say I saw a really funny Ben Simmons over under 1.5 threes out there, hammered the under instantly. That's not at any of the legal books, but that was a fun one that caught my eye as well, if you want to.
That's for the season, hopefully, on our guy.
Yes, it is.
Now, my Cam Thomas bet's very similar. Let's go Chucky on Cam Thomas. Next player in the league to score 60. It's 40-1 at DraftKings. Why not, right? Couldn't you just see this in the first week or two? Just some random Nets game. They're playing fast. They're down. He's just chucking. Last year, he started with 36, 30, 33 the first 3 games. He had a 45, 7 games into the season. He's hit 40 plus 8 times the last 2 years. Why not? Let's get to 60. It's fun. It's a fun bet to root for. We can't have slam dunks on everyone. Next up on our list, my local team, my Chicago Bulls. I'm first on this one. We're going head to head. I'm taking the over here. Now look, this is actually not a bet on the Bulls. This is a bet against the Bulls. The Bulls should tank. They should be losing. I think DeMar out, but LaVine in. LaVine, you probably get 2,000 more minutes. I hope he's healthy. I think you get a better version of LaVine with DeMar out. Also, I know this is controversial. I think Josh Giddey is going to be a pretty good floor raiser for the team. Hopefully the injury is not as bad as it looks. Since March, 15 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, almost 5 BPM. I do not think he's anywhere near that good. But LaVine and Giddey, I think, give them a little bit of a floor. Bulls are around 20th in net rating the last 4 years, pretty consistently year after year. They're not awful. They're just bad. So I'm betting against my own team by betting on the over. You're going the other way. You like the under here. What's your version?
Yeah, mine is the alt under. So I like under 24.5 at plus 215 DraftKings again. I talked about this a little bit on the pod earlier this week, targeting teams in this area for these alt unders, because honestly, there is a very decent path towards the Bulls doing the stupid thing and playing and winning 30 games, maybe 32, chasing that play in the 10 seed. But I think that there are a lot of seasons in which this is where they finally pull the ripcord. You know, they got rid of DeMar. You said Levine in. How about Levine in and then Levine out to LA? Maybe
Yeah.
we start to see some of the ripcord being pulled here. I think Giddey is secretly really bad and that he's not going to have a winning impact on this team. So the incentive says the 1 in 3 of these times we target all these teams with the all unders. You're going to hear this time and time again throughout this pod. I think I have 3 or 4 of them. The Bulls are in my tier of, targeting, finally getting their incentives right and pulling the plug and tanking on them.
Yeah, it makes sense. I know you've got a few of these alt unders. You've got one here. I'm not sure if it is one of those 3 teams. The Portland Trailblazers are next. You are in another alt under. Is this another one of those teams for you?
Yeah, this one. So the Bulls, I don't like the regular under. I only want the alt. Portland, I'm fine hitting the regular under, the alt under. I really wanted the Trailblazers to have the worst record bet. That's one that I really like. I haven't seen it out there. If people see it, send it along to me. They are already in full sabotage mode. I think the Wizards are truly a terrible team. I don't mind the one you gave there, but I think that they're bubble wrapping everyone. I think Scoot could secretly be the best draft pick they've ever had because he's going to help them tank and get Cooper Flag. He is that bad. I think he is going to secure them the top pick in this year's draft because he is he's the best tanking weapon they have at this point. He is really rough. They're wrapping up everyone who even has any semblance of contributing towards winning. DeAndre Ayton and Scoot Henderson, let's run it out all year and give them the worst record in basketball. So I like the alt under here, under 18.5 at plus 215. But any way you can fade the Blazers, I'm there for.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the under on this team. That would have been my pick, but I will go with both of us took a steals per game leader. It's a fun market to bet because you really only need to get to 2, right? Just like 2 steals per game and you have a good chance to win. I got to bet my guy Matisse Thybulle, 30-1 at FanDuel, steals per game. This for me, Matt loves to bet. Matt Moore bets Bam for defensive player every year, Donovan Mitchell for MVP every year. I think Matisse Thybulle is just going to be my steals per game bet every year till he does it. He's been at 1.6 steals or better 3 of the last 4 seasons per game, despite averaging 21 minutes a game in that stretch. We don't need to get better defense. We don't need anything other than just, can you stay on the court? Now, I don't know if he can. That's the bet, really. I think we need 28 minutes a game probably to get there. I can honestly say he probably would help your tanking efforts. So that maybe helps out a little bit here. He's real bad offensively. That's why he can't play enough. So yeah, I think just playing some long shots in this market. You've got one later. 2 other guys I looked at that almost made my cut here. Gary Trent Jr., 150-1 has been in the mix here before. I think he starts there. Keon Ellis, 250-1. Another guy that should start, get a lot of steals. This is a just fun market to sprinkle long shot names. And, 1.5 to 2, you get a random 8 steal game. And you're like, oh, my guy's in the mix now. So why not? All right. Next up, we're 5 teams in. Los Angeles Clippers. I thought a team that you were going to be all sorts of in on. You changed your mind.
I did. I still don't hate playing. This is such an extreme team and such an, information is king in betting and we have no information. So then when I don't have information, I like to go to extremes on either end. I dabbled, I had a dalliance with them. To win 45 plus or to win 50 plus. The vibes have really soured even in just the last couple of weeks. I'm going to zag off of win totals. I'm going to target a player. If we're getting weird mixed signals on Kawhi, Ivica Zubac, 10 plus rebounds at plus 200. He was basically here 2 years ago when his minutes were a touch higher. Now we've got a couple of guys out. No Paul George, no Kawhi to start the season. PBPstats.com. If you hear about on-off stuff from me today, ever it's them. I try to shout them every episode. I love them. Kawhi in particular, when Kawhi is out, it really helps Zubac's rebounding. So if Kawhi is going to be out, this is a nice, that only helps. But even if Kawhi is around, he's been basically around this number. So to get a plus 200, Zubac. I love the Harden points props, but those have moved really hard since the Kawhi news came out. You were getting plus money for him to score 20 plus. That's now a big minus money out there. But Harden points props to start the season, maybe something to keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, this is a one where the market has moved all the directions I would have thought on these teams. So it kind of killed. I didn't really love betting Clippers anyway. My bet here is last in the division, plus 140. It's really a soft bet for me because, again, the market has moved that way. The market thinks that the Clippers are terrible. I do too, but that means that there's not much left for me there. When you and I talked about the Clippers, you're like, well, they just lost PG. What else is there? Well, my fear is Kawhi Leonard plays most games since 2017 last year. You're going to miss a bunch of that. James Harden played his most games since Houston, so they're going to miss a bunch of that too. So you take away some Harden, some Kawhi, and all of PG. I don't think it goes well. The problem for me on this bet is I'm not really big on the Lakers or Kings either. So I could see things going south on either of those teams. Last in division, plus 140 is not a lot of juice for me to get excited about. Up next, the Utah Jazz. Both of us are taking player props here because God knows what this team will actually try to do. What's your player prop?
I do like the all under for the win total again for that team in this tier. However, my favorite player prop here that caught my eye, Walker Kessler to lead the league in blocks per game, 30-1 at FanDuel. So this is one where it's a minutes thing. If he can get minutes, and he has not throughout his career, but on a per minute basis, he was nearly even to Victor Wembanyama last year. If you look at the blocks per minutes leaders last season, it was 4.3 for Wemby, 3.7 for Kessler, and then no one else over 3. I think it was per 36 minutes. No one else even over 3. So it really was kind of a two-person race. Now Wemby's probably going to even improve on that. I do think there is something to him like putting the fear of God into players. We saw, midway through last season, people giving up on transition layups because they were so scared of him. Kessler doesn't have quite that reputation. So if Kessler can get a bump in his minutes, if Wemby puts the fear of God into people and or he just gets hurt for a little bit, Kessler is now very live. To get him 30-1 at FanDuel, he's a lot shorter at some of the other books. So I really like Kessler to lead the league in blocks per game.
Yeah, I really like this one. This is a good, I'm all in on Wemby and the Spurs. We will get there, but I think this is a good way to protect, in case Wemby gets hurt, in case Wemby doesn't qualify here potentially. I looked at Claxton 40-1 as well. So I think blocks per game, some of these longer shots, when Wemby's such a huge favorite, that's a good way to protect a Spurs position that I will certainly have a lot of. My Jazz man that I'm in on is Colin Sexton. I had him top 60 in my Elite 100. Did not see that coming heading into the summer. My bet is 18 points a game, 6 assists a game. It's plus 850 at DraftKings. He did that already last year. From January 1st forward, he was at almost 21 points a game, 5.9 assists per game. Now, look, those were pretty fake games, but it's the Jazz. We might get more fake games this year. I don't know what they're doing. Like maybe Lowry gets quote-unquote hurt or traded at the deadline. I can't get traded at the deadline. We're stuck with it this year, but I don't know. I don't know what we're getting from the Jazz. I think Sexton's a pretty good player, honestly. Proven 3, got a playmaking leap last year, especially second half of the year. So I will play that one. It's one of my favorite player bets on this podcast. Up next, another one of your alt-unders on the Toronto Raptors.
Last one of these, I promise, but they are in this tier. I'll keep this very quick. This is like Chicago, Canada edition. I have a lot of the same thoughts about Chicago as I do here. They're already kind of being a little more public about the direction they want to go. But to me, they have a little bit better roster. So I think it makes sense being priced there. I love playing both of these all unders. I know you are actually a little bit higher on this team and you're on the Bulls over. So we're actually a little bit head to head here. But I think playing the 2 all unders for Toronto and Chicago at plus 215, like I said on the other podcast, I'd love to have the extreme alts where we get these teams to go under 20 at like plus 400. That would intrigue me even more because I think you really want the bottom to come out of one of these teams. But I think that this is a soft version of doing that. If you see win bands, though, for Toronto or Chicago, I would love having one of them in the teens at a nice long number. But this is the best we got right now that I could find. So under 26.5 plus 210 at DraftKings.
Yeah, we're head to head on both these teams, the Bulls and the Raptors, and I think it's actually sort of a similar theory. For me, I think Washington, Brooklyn, Detroit, Charlotte are clearly worse than these teams. Well, that means you're the 11 seed or better. You're in the play-in mix. You might actually try to win some games. So I like the over both of them. I'm on the over on the Raptors, 29.5, and a little bit on the escalator play, 35 plus wins at 325. 40 plus wins at plus 900 at MGM. Now, I don't think they're going to get to 500, but I think that the numbers off here, the floor and the ceiling, I think are both better than it seems.
I'm actually with you in that. If you want to be on this team, this is another team like Chicago. I don't mind I don't want the regular under. I want the extremes because there's so many, it's usually a bell curve for the win spread. It's not a bell curve here. It's like a flat line or maybe even inverse bell curve almost.
Yeah, I agree. And I kind of like Darko that he developed players pretty well last year. Quickly and RJ Barrett, your New York Knickerbockers, got to Toronto and played pretty well last year. They broke out. Scotty really broke out. I was really impressed with his numbers digging in. They're going to get about 85 more games of those guys this year. They only lost 66 games of Siakam and OG. So I think just the way we're thinking about this team and the way the minutes go and help out the team more Olynyk, more Pirtle, more shooting, the way that they've built the roster out a little bit. I just feel like there's more to this team given the options in the East than, the other teams we've talked about so far, including probably this team. That's another one we're going to bet the outlier on. Our number 23 team, Charlotte Hornets. What do you like here?
Yeah, I like LaMelo 3.5 threes and 35 plus wins at DraftKings under those team specials. So we got Charles Lee in town. He's theoretically coming in with quicker pace, although that has been kind of hit or miss in preseason. But I think when LaMelo's on the court, it's going to be quicker pace. LaMelo averaged 3.2 last season, but the year before was 4. We're talking small samples because he keeps getting hurt. That's the one thing with this bet. He has to play 41 plus games. Here's the thing. If he is playing more than half the games in the season, I think the Hornets are a 35 plus win team. So these are one of those that where it's hyper correlated. So I really like being on this bet that I think is the correlation's underbaked and it can let you play on the Hornets team that I actually don't love. But if LaMelo is playing over half the season, I think that they will be in the race, quote unquote, race for the play-in in the East.
Yeah, and I'm going to go with a quote-unquote race in the division. I'll just take them as a 55-1 division underdog. Just a little nibble, not a team I'm super in on here. LaMelo was only 15th in minutes on the team last year. Mark Williams was 17th in minutes. If we just get more of those guys and sophomore Brandon Miller, who improved a lot last year, I like Charles Lee, like you said. I think they have a lot of defensive potential with some of the guys on the roster. It's just a bet, really. It's almost as much for me a fade of Orlando and Miami, who we will get to, as it is a bet on Charlotte. But, when has Carolina Island ever gone bad for me? Give me the long shot 55-1 here. Up next, the team we're playing players on, the Detroit Pistons. Not a team that we love, but I think one we're looking forward to watching. They're second highest in our tier here. I'm going to go first on this one. This is my rookie of the year bet. Ron Holland, 25-1. This was my number one upside prospect in a pretty bad draft, which is why he's that. But you want a top 5 pick for rookie of the year. Top 5 pick is won 80% of the rookie of the year awards in NBA history. So that's not Zach Edey, who is the leader right now with way too short of a number. Holland put up numbers in the G League, and I like about him, I don't think he's going to start, but that means coming off the bench next to Sasser, Asar Thompson, Paul Reed, those guys aren't going to score a lot of points. Ron Holland's going to get some shots up. I think maybe even there's a little Cade Light here with some of the playmaking, some of the rebounding. So it's not a position I love, but it's a wide open race. 25-1 for a very talented player who's going to get plenty of green lights on this team. I think it's just too long. You've got sort of a player team combo here. What do you like?
Yeah, speaking of Cade Light, I want Cade heavy this year. I want Cade to kind of hit that ceiling. And if Cade's going to reach his ceiling, we're on Pistons Island. Let's get a little goofy here. I'm going to go Tobias Harris, 18 plus points per game. Cade Cunningham, 8 plus assists per game. And Detroit in the playoffs at 30-1 under the team specials at DraftKings. Now, Detroit being in the playoffs is the ceiling of the team. But here's the thing. It is a plus 1,200 number that I'm vaguely intrigued by because the bottom of the East is garbage. And I actually think that this Detroit team is going to be trying this year. And I'm vaguely interested, right? So if I can get Tobias Harris, 18 plus points, Cade Cunningham, 8 plus assists, if they make the playoffs, those two things to me almost certainly have happened. Cade has become better as a creative hub. He was basically at that number in the second half of the year last year. Tobias on bad teams kind of just stumbles his way. I mean, he was nearly at 18 points a game in Philly last year as, option X, XYZ down there in Philly. Now he's going to be able to, kind of just fill in, do his Tobias Harris thing, score 20 points, grab a couple rebounds, be just very mediocre in a way that isn't harmful to his fan base. So if these two things happen, I'm basically getting a 3x bonus on a plus 1,200 to make the playoffs number that probably is a little bit short, but now I can really get in on the ceiling of this team at 30-1. So Pistons Island, I'm back on just for this team special at least.
All right. Well, last team in this tier for us, you've got a sort of similar thing, a player team combo. Sorry to the Houston Rockets, who really don't belong in this tier, but they were a unanimous most watchable team in the tier. So what's the bet that you like for the Rockets here?
I'll first say that I had them in the tier above. You switched a couple around, which actually, honestly, is totally fair because it's a team that I do like that's in that tier that we bumped up. But Houston Rockets, I love this team. Rockets Island, definitely another island I'm on this year. I just love this roster. There's so much depth to it that it almost makes it hard to bet on them. But one bet I do like is Jabari to score 15 plus points, Houston to win 50 plus games at plus 900. I'll say this is not my favorite bet, even though it's one of my favorite teams to watch this year. I wish the number was a little bit longer, but if Houston gets to 50 wins, I do think part of it is going to be a leap from some of their younger players, like a Jabari. He went from 12.8 his rookie year, 13.7 last year, kind of a steady growth maybe into that role. There's so many guys on this team. That's the biggest thing that hurts this bet in my eyes. But Houston had a Pythag, last year of a mid to upper 40s team. Now the West has gotten better, but they have a lot of young talent. I think it's really going to come down to like two swing players for them: Jalen Green, Alperen Şengün. They made their run when Şengün was out, which is kind of, is it one of these things where he doesn't work for them, or is it one of these things where they figured some things out? Now they're adding back a really good player. Can they make it all work? The thing to me is Jalen Green, because I think they can make it work, but I want to see if Jalen Green can make it work. So they have a lot of options. I think their bench, like if you're live betting this and you're watching Rockets games, I really love targeting when their bench is out there because they have a great bench unit there. So it's a team I love to be on. This bet I like, but just look at the Rockets spreads and money lines to start the season as well. It's a team that I'm really high on.
Yeah, I like this team. I want to watch this team. I just have a hard time betting the futures. If you could put the Rockets in the East this year, I would be all over.
Yeah.
They're over. Put them in the Southeast Division. I'd be on the division odds. I'd be smashing that. Unfortunately, I'm playing last in the division, plus 390 at DraftKings, because it's the wrong conference and the wrong division. I like the Rockets. I have them around a 500 team. I think the offense limits the ceiling a little bit. I have them like a bottom 10 offense. They're 20th last year, 27th in EFG. It's still too much Dylan Brooks, still too much Jalen Green for me. I'm never going to love that on the team. I'm in on the Rockets futures. I just mean like the futures. Like I want to get there. I think it's just a year early for me. All right. Next 10 teams. We are ranking our middle 10 teams based on how afraid would we be to see our team facing them in the first round. So at the bottom of the list, the Sacramento Kings featuring De'Aaron Fox. That's your bet. How are you betting Fox this year?
Yeah, this is very much offense intended. Like Kings, sorry, you are just so boring, and I would not be scared to see you in the postseason. I love DeMar. I love De'Aaron Fox. I actually like a lot of the guys on the team, but I'm going to go with Fox under assists. You can get it at 5.8 at DraftKings. Kind of a boring bet for kind of boring team. Wherever DeMar goes, teammate assists tend to go down a little bit. He's a very ISO heavy player. Fox wasn't even at this number last year, and that was before bringing in a very high usage player who's going to be a ball creator of his own. And he when he scores, it's often in isolation instead of off of assists from Fox. So kind of a boring bet, but I do like it actually. It's just laying minus 110 on a player assist prop for 6 months.
Yeah, making money is not boring. I'm going to go with the Kings missing the playoffs at plus 160. Look, you're not going to ever sell me on a team with DeMar and Sabonis featured on the roster. That's just not going to be my team. There is floor, I think, there, but not a lot of stealing, not a lot of defense. It's the West, really. This is more a bet on the West. This is the 10 seed for me. I think they're a fine regular season team, but I think they're a play-in team at best. I think they could miss the play-in, or I'll happily bet against them in the play-in. They also have a top 12 protected pick. I have them getting the number 12 pick right now. So if they're close, that's another out where they might just decide to keep a pick there instead. So I will fade the Kings. Another team we're not afraid of in the first round, but you are very high on this year, your Atlanta Hawks. Who do you like?
Yeah, this was the team that you flipped into this. They originally were in the lowest tier, and they were my favorite team to watch in the lowest tier, but I was honored that you moved them into the actual, do we have to be worried about them? And then we both ranked them near the bottom because I do love this Hawks team. I don't think their ceiling is insane, but I do think that their regular season win total ceiling is mispriced, and you can get over 44.5 wins at plus 800 at Caesars right now. Again, this is we're talking about all overs when you're looking at the Eastern Conference and all unders when you're looking at the Western Conference, because it is the balance of power as things are right now. I've been giving out the baseline of this Hawks win total over and over again. I've talked about the Dejounte Murray part of it. I've talked about Richardson looking strong. I've talked about how the market kept backing them time and time again. They missed a lot of Trae Young. They missed a lot of Jalen Johnson. They missed a lot of DeAndre Hunter. They had a nightmare season. They won 36. They get back into this mid-40s tier. Getting this number, I think, just again, an escalator on a team that I really like. So getting them over 44.5 at plus 800 at Caesars. I know you would say the division might be the way to go at an even longer number, but I'm on the Magic as well. I do think the
Right.
Magic are a strong team. So I want to look at the win total instead of the division in particular.
Yeah, so division is my bet at 12-1. I got this 17-1 when Matt and I did the division here. It's for me, it's the same stuff as what you just said. Less so for me. I'm not quite as high on the Hawks. I don't think anyone's quite as high on the Hawks as you are. You may have that island, sir. But I'm happy to fade Orlando and Miami. If your bet hits and we get a 45, I feel very confident that that's going to win the division as well. I would make the Hawks around plus 500. So even with a lower price here in the division, I like them at 12-1. Up next is the Orlando Magic. You are playing Franz Wagner. I know he is your 45-1 most improved player here. What's the player prop you like?
Yeah, this is the first rung of the ladder, because the top rung of the ladder has been brought a lot closer to the middle rungs. We gave that bet out time and time again, and it wasn't budging for a while. It was when I sent it out on Twitter, it was 66-1. It's now down like consensus 20-1 range. It's a great bet, but at this point, let's move over. Let's go to the first rung of the ladder. Franz to score 22 plus points per game, plus 200 at FanDuel. This I talked about this in my cap of most improved player. He's due for a bit of shooting regression if he's going by his career norms. Now, Matt Moore did point out he's 0 for 4 in the preseason from 3. I'm not going to stress that yet. But I think if we get that regression back and a little bit of improvement from a young player, this 22 is basically right within range at a plus 200 number on a player that I am all about making a jump this season. I like that as the first rung of the Franz ladder.
So I'm going to fade the Magic, as we just said. I like the under 48.5 a lot here. I just see a lot of fraudy things about the profile here. The defense leapt from 16th to 2nd last year. Top 3 in turnovers. Does that keep up? Top EFG is dependent a lot on Jonathan Isaac. Can he play? Can he stay on the court enough? I don't know. The offense was last in threes. They turn it over a lot. And they still finished 22nd, even though they led the league in turnovers, which should give you a lot of easy points. So if I'm right about some of those things regressing, that's even worse for the offense. To me, this is just a team where the offense is bad, the defense was great. It's easier for the defense to fall off of being great than it is for me to see the offense suddenly getting really good here for a young team. So I like the under 48.5. I project them anywhere from 40 to 45 wins. This is my 8th seed. So again, I'm also going to play a little escalator here. Give me the missed playoffs at plus 650 at Caesars. I have them in the play-in range. I would not be afraid of facing this team in a play-in game, so I will fade the Magic. Number 17 for us is my most confusing team in the league. I don't know what in the world the New Orleans Pelicans are. How are you betting them?
Yeah, I lied. There's one more all under. It's not a team from in the 25 to 30 win range. It's a team that's in the West and in the mid 40s range. And I actually think that's another range that you can target. If you did like a Kings all under as well, as another way to get like a nice plus 200-ish type number on leveraging how good the West is. I've been on Pelicans Island for a while. It was kind of fun last year. They had a decent team. If they were healthy in the postseason and they didn't draw the Thunder, I was going to look to be on them. But they got rid of some of their depth. There's a lot of questions about Brandon Ingram now, and they brought in DeJounte Murray, who again, I feel like I've become the bad guy. I hope he doesn't come across this at some point, because every single time I talk basketball this offseason, it seems like I'm shitting all over him. But I think overall that this team, they went away from what made them good for so long, which was like good defensive depth, and that just isn't there right now. They're starting the year without a center. I actually looked at schedule, and I don't know how bad that is to start the year. There actually isn't any big centers that can demolish them early. But in the West this year, it's actually kind of a time where you might actually want someone playing defense at center. So I don't know how long that experiment lasts. Again, I'm with you in wanting to leverage the fact that I'm very confused by this team. So I don't want just the regular all under, or the regular under. I want the all under 42.5 at plus 210.
Yeah, for sure. Not a team I want anything to do with median outcomes. I either want the alt high or the alt low. My alt low is I'll just take last in the division, 8-1. I played Houston too. This is as much for me a bet on San Antonio and the strength of the division. Dallas, Memphis are the other two. I just have those three clearly ahead. So I'm happy to bet Houston and especially the Pelicans 8-1 down near the bottom. So I want the tail end here.
I hadn't thought of that, and I'm definitely tail. I love that as the next rung on the ladder that I'm kind of on. I love that.
Yeah, I only want the furthest out rung in the Pelicans. Team that I want to not bet or watch at all. The number 16 team for our list, the Miami Heat, our least interesting team on the board from a futures perspective. Here's my bet. Jimmy Butler at least 10 assists in any game this season. It's even odds at DraftKings. honestly, this is real boring, but I think it's actually one of my most likely bets to hit on the podcast. He has done 10 assists or more 28 times in 5 Miami seasons, at least twice every season. That's it. That's the case. No Lowry, no true point guard, Butler assists. What's yours? Yours is not even a future. What's your bet?
I know it's so boring. We joked about maybe just leaving them off the pod and not acknowledging them at all, but you were the better man and said no, let's have them on the pod. My quote unquote future is going to be Bam over 0.5 threes on October 26th against Charlotte. Sounds very specific, but it is in the future technically. Basically, this is just a play on Bam has said he's going to take more threes in the preseason. He has been taking more threes. I think the books are going to be a little bit behind on this. And Charlotte was the most interesting opponent to start the season. You know, a theoretically faster paced team with LaMelo there, a team that is not a very good defensive team, especially against three. So I'm going to look at Bam. You know, I'm going to sprinkle these a little bit throughout the start of the season. I think the Hornets game is the best option to do so.
All right, not a future, but Bam's not a top 20 player either. So what are you going to do about the Heat? All right, Indiana Pacers up next. You've got a 6th man of the year bet. Who you like?
Yeah, we've said this one before, so I'll be relatively brief. I think we're both honest. I think Joe's on this. I think a lot of action's on this. Benedict Mathurin, 6th man of the year, 20-1 at DraftKings. Still love that number. It's come down a little bit, but he just fits every single part of your rules to a T. I'm pretty high on him having like a little bit of a nice little season there anyways. And I think he has, because of the wing depth that the Pacers have and the way the bench and the offense and the starters play, I think they really want him to stay in that bench role. And I think that there are guys to slot in when injuries pop up and allow him to stay in the bench role. So I love Mathurin 20-1 as 6th man of the year.
Yeah, I'm bummed. It was 40-1 in August, and I didn't get to give it out on a podcast. So I still do like it at 20-1. He's my second favorite pick there. I'm just taking a fun bet on this one. Give me Tyrese Halliburton, 25 assists in any game this season. Just a fun ticket to have. 10-1 at FanDuel. He had a 23 last year against your Knicks. We know they're going to play fast. We know they're going to have a lot of offense. We probably need overtime to get one of these. But, like what's more fun than it's the fourth quarter and Tyrese Halliburton has like 19 assists and you just have this bet sitting out there. I didn't have a better one for the Pacers, so that's my bet. I do have better bets for the Spurs.
Yeah,
this is a team that we need to move up into this tier. They shouldn't have even been in the middle tier, and yet they are 4th most feared team in the tier. I wonder why they're the most feared team in the tier. Maybe Victor Wembanyama? What's your Wembanyama bet to start the Wemby ladder? And then I'll take it away from there.
Yeah, I'll just really quickly, we're trying to just do bets, but I do think it's very telling that both of us think that if these Spurs get to the postseason, it means they've semi-arrived and you should fear them, and that they're above a lot of teams that I think people would have higher, but you and I are, front and center on the Wemby train. So yeah, you said you're going to have these long shots galore on Wemby. I've bet a bunch of these. I love them too, but I want to give someone the first rung of the ladder. So I'm going to give a -115. That is one of my favorite. This is like, make the bet, come back and collect your 87% ROI in 6 months. Victor Wembanyama over 11.5 rebounds at BetMGM. You can still get that number out there. He averaged 12 in the second half of last season when they started to give him more minutes, so he cleared it pretty easily. Then he went out and added 20 pounds of muscle. They're going to play him with Zach Collins. It's going to be a much more friendly lineup for him to get rebounds in. The ceiling is absolutely incredible here. You can do some of the rebound, like to lead the league in rebounds. I think it's just the first rung of this. I just want to make sure I make a little bit of money on the Spurs because these long shots are great. But, we all know that long shots, even if you hit, 1 in 7 out of the plus 1,000, there's a lot of losing to be in the end. You're making money. Let's get a nice safe one here. -115, Wemby over 11.5 rebounds.
Yeah, I like the Wemby and escalator on him specifically, 9-1 at DraftKings for first team All NBA, or the best number you can grab on that one still. I'm going to make my case on the Spurs here, and then I'll list off my bets that I have for you at the end, backwards this time. So last, if you look at Wemby's season, it really almost reads like 4 seasons for him. The way that it was like a couple of months as a rookie, a couple of months as like, oh, you're coming around. Here's your sophomore year. January 1 hits, and it's like, oh, okay, you're real good now. Then post All-Star break, he's like a super duper star. After the All-Star break, 24, 12, and 5, 4.5 blocks a game, 8 BPM. That is a top 5 MVP profile. This is a guy that I think right now is a number 1 caliber defense unto himself. That's why I'm betting so much on this team. If you look at the Spurs, their team profile kind of reflected Wemby's profile. In just 2023, before the calendar turned, they were at a 9-win pace. That's the Wizards thing I said earlier. That's the pace that the Spurs were playing like. Post All-Star break, they played at a 37-win pace. Now to that, they had Chris Paul, they had Harrison Barnes, just veteran floor-raising sort of guys. If I'm right about Wemby being this good already, this is not a projection. This is how good he already is, mostly defensively. We talked about this on the preview. Stars this good play on 45 to 50 win teams consistently, even if you don't have much around you. Kevin Garnett, Timberwolves, David Robinson, Spurs, LeBron, year 2, Dwayne Wade, before LeBron came over. These are above 500, 45, 50 win type teams. That's what I think the Spurs are this year. I think the market is most off on them than any team. So love the over 35.5. That's the bottom rung of my ladder. And then playoffs, plus 450 to make the playoffs. I have them straight up in the playoffs, not even in the play-in. I have them in the playoffs. And then division odds at ESPN Bet 33-1. I don't love that because the Grizzlies and the Mavs are pretty good in this division. The whole division's pretty good. I think anyone can win the division. But if I'm right that they're going to be in a 45 to 50 win range, they're in the mix, and 33-1 is too long. And then you had one as well. Wemby, 25 points a game, and the division is 45-1 at DraftKings. Hard to see how you win the division without Wemby being that good and hitting the 25. So maybe just do that one instead. Those are my Spurs bet. This is my team. I saw him in a couple preseason games. I was like, all right, buddy, can we get like the post All-Star break? Like, are we ready? You look a little bit more like a sophomore. We'll see. This is the team I'm over leveraged on this year.
I'll note one more. You gave out the 45-1. I didn't even put in the notes here, but if we want the top rung of the, I've got a 75-1 Wemby clutch player of the year that I talked about on that podcast as well. If you look at, again, the 4 seasons, in the 4th season, he was basically the 4th most leverage player in clutch time. They're going to have a lot more close games if they are a better team. Would be really fun if we gave a Wemby clutch award this year. So I'll add that as another crazy long shot.
Yeah, why not just give him all the trophies? He's already win Defensive Player of the Year, and he's the favorite for Most Improved. So why not give him that one too? Speaking of teams that we're over leveraged on, the Action Network presents the Memphis Grizzlies, the team that we all went down with a ship on last year. Who do you like on the Grizzlies this year?
Yeah, I am kind of on a fade of the Grizzlies, but my specific bet here is actually a fade of a player. So it's going to be Ja Morant under 26.6 points per game at BetMGM. He scored notably worse when he didn't have Steven Adams on the court all of those years in Memphis. Now he's going to be sharing the court with Marcus Smart, which he hadn't done in bulk in any of these seasons before. He's had Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr., who got used to a little bit more usage last year, as well as all the other players who got used to more usage last year when they were, the zombie Grizzlies. So I think they're going to limit him a little bit as well. If he rolls an ankle here, we saw it in preseason, he rolled his ankle. I think that they're going to be aggressive taking him out of games with any tweak, anytime he's not feeling well. They're in this for the long haul. They're going to try and bubble wrap him at times. So this number is just crazy high to me. This is one of my favorite -110, put it away for the season type bets. Ja Morant under 26.6 points per game.
Yeah, I don't mind that one, but I still like the over here. Just give me the over 46.5 win total. I am not going to play the escalator on the Grizzlies this year. I just want the median on this team. I'm not sure I still believe in the ultimate ceiling here, but the case is basically if we liked them last year, we got to like them again now. They have the guys back. They should get 6,000 more minutes by my calculation from Ja and Bane, and Brandon Clark is back this season. They got Zach Edey, hopefully like a poor man Steven Adams with the role that he will play for them. Marcus Smart, they should get more from him this year. And last year allowed them to develop the bench. Vince Williams, Scottie Pippen Jr., I think are going to be really valuable contributors this year that they didn't have before. Gigi Jackson, once he's back eventually. Taylor Jenkins, before last season, was 4-0 to the over by over 8 wins a season. At least 6.5 wins over every single time. I love this over. It's one of my favorite on the board. Up next, remember, we're ranking by how we fear the teams. Somehow, our LeBron stan ranked LeBron behind Steph. We tied in the rankings. I broke the tiebreaker on your behalf. I put LeBron back ahead. So number 12 is the Golden State Warriors. What do you like for this team?
Yeah, I'm really high on the Warriors in general. I took them in that wins draft that we had. So I think that was in my head. I do think when you pointed out, I was like, you know what? If LeBron and AD are in the postseason, it means good. It's kind of like the Wemby corollary, the Spurs corollary of if they're there, I'm going to be scared. But this Warriors team's really fun. And one of the pieces that I think is going to help them be really fun and better than last year is Anthony Melton. I've always loved this guy. He's kind of like the hipster NBA favorite. And I fall right in that trap. You can get him to lead in steals per game at 60-1. You mentioned some of these long shots earlier. You talked about Tybal. Melton's kind of my version of that. He's always hovering around 1.5 in very limited minutes. If you look at, again, per 36 minutes, it's really just a matter of him staying on the court, both health-wise and in terms of minutes per game. The thing that I think is so good here is he fits so well next to Steph. Now, whether Steve Kerr and his funky rotations that have been driving people in the Bay Area nuts for a decade now will actually put him out next to Steph instead of Podziemski, who doesn't fit as well next to Steph. He kind of actually does like really nice Steph light without the shooting creation stuff off the bench. I think it makes a lot of sense to have Pods off the bench, Melton as the defender next to Steph, and give Melton a fair amount of minutes. If he is in the 28 minutes per game, he's going to be right there in the high ones, near 2 steals per game, and that's all you really need to be in, as we talked about, to be in the race for this. So 60-1, De'Anthony Melton to lead the league in steals per game at DraftKings.
Yeah, I like Melton a lot. That's a bet I've made in other seasons, so I don't mind that one at all. I like the Warriors defense a lot this year. I think the defense was really good once Draymond got back last year. I like adding Melton to the mix, more Kyle Anderson to the mix. He's a really good defender. Hopefully more Gary Payton II this year. They were, once Draymond returned last year, 4th in net rating, top 8 offense and defense. They were quietly a really, really good team. I think, Clay or not, if you still have Steph and Draymond, you are still an elite team until proven otherwise. So I do like the over 42.5 here, but I think this is a team that I want the outliers on, and I want the good outlier. I'm the Warriors guy, so I'm always going to take the good side. I'm going to play one of those DraftKings team specials. Steph, 6 assists a game, Draymond, 6 assists a game, and the division, 14-1. Steph's 6.5 for his career. Draymond's at 7.1 assists since 2016. The numbers dipped last year. That's because Chris Paul was there running the show. Chris Paul's not there anymore. I think those are very normal targets for them. The division odds are 5-1. I think this is a great way to juice the division odds. And I have it Golden State Phoenix at the top. And I think it's a good way to bet on the Warriors. Last one in this tier, our team we fear the most, if they get there, for reasons you said, the LA Lakers. It's not a LeBron bet for you. You got an Anthony Davis bet.
Yeah, honestly, this team I have struggled with all offseason. I'll be really high on them 1 minute, and I'll be like, oh, JJ Redick, they're gonna do so much better, more creative stuff. Then next minute I'll be like, man, but like the rest of this roster sucks, and they got a lot of games out of those two last year. So I'm gonna give a long shot here. I'm gonna give Anthony Davis Defensive Player of the Year. This is not my favorite bet, but one quiet tweak in the preseason, Redick actually has the Lakers playing a slower pace. And we know that like defensive rating is more important than strict points allowed per game. But I do think there's a little bit of like, if the we're seeing these low totals and it kind of seeps into voters' heads, like, man, the Lakers keep holding teams in the 90s. And, I think it's a non-zero thing. And I think that, from a perspective of he has done well in this award plenty of times. He fits that to a T. The Lakers defense slipped a little bit last year, but I think if they have Jared Vanderbilt back, they could potentially move up the ranks a little bit. And then just narratively, he's a generational defender who doesn't have one of these yet. I think it's very easy to talk yourself into this is, Anthony Davis. How does he not have one of these yet? So getting him at 30-1 at BetMGM for Defensive Player of the Year, not my favorite bet on the pod. Lakers in general have confused me this offseason, but I do think that playing AD's ceiling, if he can stay out there and, fits the narrative, isn't a bet I hate.
Yeah, this is actually one of my favorite bets on the pod. It's my favorite under on the board, under 44.5. You kind of made the case. I don't like the roster pieces around LeBron and Anthony Davis. LeBron played 71 games last year. That's his most since Cleveland. Anthony Davis played 76. That's his most ever. And then they went and played Olympics also. We're going to get, I think, surely less of those guys, maybe a bunch less, even like 25 games less is terrible because last year, even with all those games, they finished 1 win above the 10 seed in the West. The West is really good. It's hard to come by wins. They have not finished in the top half of the league in net rating any of the last 3 seasons. That should be a team projected to go below 500. That's about where I have them. LeBron teams are 9-2 to the under since 2013, since that last Miami title MVP season. So under 44.5, my favorite under on the board. Get that LeBron tax in your favor. All right, our last 10 teams. We're ranking them the obvious way by title chances. So at the bottom of our mix, a team that we are not afraid of in the playoffs, but we do like them in the regular season, the Cleveland Cavaliers. What's your bet?
Oh, they're such a great regular season team, and I just have no fear of them come postseason. I will say that they're spunky, and if they have an amazing season, they look really good under Kenny Atkinson. Talked about this on Monday's pod. Him coach of the year is one of my favorite bets. I could be talked into this, but this is just, we're in the top 10 now. There's 10 really intriguing, interesting teams. I'm going to get on them the regular season, though. Like you said, I want a bounce back season from Darius Garland. I think they'll be taking a lot more threes. I think that's going to impact Mitchell and Garland the most, with a little bit of Mobley as well. So Darius Garland to average 20 plus points and them to win the division at plus 800. I really like getting the 50 plus wins because I think the Bucks are intriguing as well. But they had this division there. It was within their grasp last year, and then they kind of willfully gave it away to do a little shenanigans with their playoff seeding. But I'm going to be looking at Cleveland overs to start the season. I think the pace and the threes are going to be outstanding. I think Garland had basically a year from hell last year. I still believe in the talent there. So getting him at 20 plus points per game, I think that's great. If he goes back up to that level, it's really good news for them in general. I think these are pretty strongly correlated again. And I just really love the floor of Cleveland, but I want to get a little bit longer number here. So I'm going to do the team special on DraftKings at plus 800.
Yeah, I like the regular season version of this team. Like you said, a lot of the same reasons. 2 of the last 3 years, 3/4 of the way through the season, they were number 1 in the East in net rating and expected wins. They kind of fell off and they underperformed some of those. I wonder, is there maybe some low-hanging fruit that JB Bickerstaff left out there that Kenny Atkinson can find? Do something a little different offensively, find some better answers. The defense has been top 7 3 times in a row. That's a regular season formula I always like. Mitchell, Garland, Mobley were 4th, 5th, and 8th in minutes last year. So I think we get like 40-ish more games from those guys also. So I will take the Cavs over 48.5. And then I'm with you. Atkinson, Coach of the Year, is one of my 2 guys. 30-1. 4 of the last 8 Coach of the Year winners have been first year on their team. So I've got a second guy I'll add with them in a bit. Up next, my Minnesota Timberwolves, and your most niche bet on the board, in my opinion. What do you like here?
Yeah, this is the goofiest bet of all time. This is the Minnesota Timberwolves to be the number 4 seed. Exactly. The number 4 seed in the West at plus 700 DraftKings. Honestly, I looked for a bunch of bets, a bunch of different ways to play this. They're a team that I don't really love their ceiling. I think they're going to regress a little bit. I think there's some teams in the West that are much better than them. Thunder in particular in the regular season. I'm intrigued by the Mavs and the Suns. I have them 4th in my power rankings in the West right now. I know that's not how it works. If you there's spreads and there are margins and stuff, but to get plus 700 on a team that I think they have a pretty high floor with the talent and the coaching on that team, but I don't really love the ceiling. Let's put them in the middle of the West at plus 700. Don't put a whole bucket load of money on this, but as a really goofy niche funny bet, like if it hits, it's going to be the funniest bet I hit all year. So I wanted to come with the plus 700 there.
I got a plus 700 as well. Mine's a little easier to understand. Mine just missed the playoffs. So mine is basically fall into the play-in, fall out of the play-in. I think they went the wrong direction here. I think this team wanted to get more offense, but I think that they sacrificed a hyper-elite defense. They got rid of guys that were really good on that end. And they went out, they got Joe Ingles, invested a lot in Rob Dillingham, who they're going to have to play in the second unit. I think that's going to make the offense worse in the immediate future. You know how I feel about Julius Randle. This number actually went up after the trade for a longer number. That doesn't make any sense to me. I think this team's floor is much lower after the trade. Rudy possibly aging out. Conley, I think, was maybe the second best player last year. He turns 37 this year. I have this right on the fringe of the play-in. So just a team that I'm always going to bet against my Timberwolves. You know how it goes. Dallas Mavericks, number 8. I'm going to go first on this one. I have the Mavs right around the same as I have the Timberwolves. So I'm betting on play-in odds at plus 275. Luka's really not had a great regular season team yet. That's why I'm a little lower on him for MVP as well. 4 of 5 seasons, he's been at a 47 to 52 win pace with this team. That's about where I have them here. In the West, that puts you on the fringe of the play-in. This is still, to me, a 2-man team. This is not a team that I'm buying the playoff run. I'm not quite buying the defense yet. It's really not a team that I have a strong feel on. I just feel like I don't want to miss the playoffs because you could still have Luka and Kyrie. You're going to probably get out of the play-in. So just play-in odds plus 275. You have a Luka bet here, I believe.
Yeah, it's a team I'm coming around on. I'm not buying the playoff run. I agree with you. I think that was a little bit of fool's gold, but I am kind of buying the offseason moves they made in year 2, Derek Lively. I think there is some intrigue there to the ceiling, but I'm actually giving one of my shorter bets here. I'm doing a plus 160. It's Luka to have 10 plus assists per game. He did that over the second half of the season last year, and now he has Klay Thompson. I'll keep it pretty simple. That's the cap. You couldn't really pick a better player to just post up and get wide open looks alongside Luka for a number that he did in the second half of last season. So I'll keep it brief with the Mavs.
All right, we now go to a team that you like better, but also don't like better, as it turns out. Your New York Knicks. You're taking a Knicks Mavs position here.
Yeah, I'm going. Yeah, circle the wagons. This could have been the Mavericks bet. I'm taking the Mavericks to win more regular season games than the Knicks at plus 175 at DraftKings. I'll be honest, I would love a Cavaliers or a Magic number to go heads up with the Knicks here. The Knicks under is one of my favorite bets. I think you can do the all under. I've already talked about that, so I wanted to get a little bit creative with it here. Any of these head-to-head bets where you're going to go against the Knicks, I'm probably going to love it. Maybe there's a couple teams there that I'm lower on as well, but I just think that the Knicks are really mispriced at this point, and the win total for them with the thinness of the depth, the lack of depth, I should say, on the roster after all of the offseason moves they've made with Tibbs at the helm. I know Tibbs can bring the floor up, but I get scared that there are going to be an injury or two here, there. We've already seen it with Mitchell Robinson. They're already, going to be a little bit, so they're going to have Cat as their defensive center. I have a lot of questions about this team that's being priced as if it is, bordering on the tier of the Celtics. I mean, that win total is really crazy to me. So I wanted to get creative with it. Any of these head-to-head win total markets, I'm probably going to be pretty interested, but the Mavs at plus 175 is one that I like.
Yeah, I'll just play the win total. All the reasons you said, under the 54.5. I gave it out at 53.5 before the trade, so we get an extra win here. I do like it a little less now after the trade, in that I think the Knicks are a little more stable. I think Cat raises the offensive floor, which helps a little bit, but I'm pretty worried about the defense here. I'm pretty worried about Tibbs' defenses have not gone well when they haven't had a great center, and Cat as a defensive center is not going to do the job there. The depth, as you mentioned, I have them just outside top 10 offense and defense. I think they're probably inside the top 10 offensively now, but well outside the top 10 defensively. It's just way too high of a number. It's the LeBron Lakers version of the, it's the Knicks tax, just taking the under here. A team that we had to actually shoehorn into our top 10. They are not in the top 10 by win total, but we have them 6. I think that tells you how badly underpriced they are in the market, is the Phoenix Suns. So I'm going to go first on this one. I like the over 46.5, and I like Coach Bud 25-1 for Coach of the Year. That's my other coach here. And really, my Suns position is mostly a bet on Bud. His teams have been top 6 in threes, 8 of 10 seasons. We're seeing it in the preseason. The Suns are shooting threes. Can you believe it? Miracle of miracles. They were top 5 in 3-point percent last year, bottom 5 in 3-point attempts. So you jack the number up, you increase pace, which usually Bud teams do. They're already great free throws. He usually helps get the free turnovers down. I think that's the profile of a possible number 1 offense this year. Defensively, pop system, no fouls, max the 4 factors, lots on the 2% defense. This is a lot on Yusuf Nurkic. I don't love that, but he was really good for them last year. I just think that the number is way too low for the Suns, a little overreacting to how bad things were last year. I had a lot of good pieces around the mix as well, and I like the offseason. Again, Bud, another first-year coach. 4 out of the last 8 coach of the year came from a first year on the team. So I like the over. I like Bud 25-1. You've got another different version of betting on the Suns. I like yours also. What's your pick?
Yeah, this is so fun. We were all off of the Suns last year, and they nearly cashed that to be in the play-in bet that was so good. They got hot at the end of the season. I've come around. I'm 180. I'm with you. I am so high on the Suns team right now. Part of it is Bud. I absolutely love playing him coach of the year. Part of it is that you mentioned their offseason with Tyus Jones, Monty Morris. I think they did around the fringes about as well as they could do. I'm very intrigued with Bradley Beal, and that is not a sentence I often say, but I think that of all of the players on the Suns, he is potentially in the best position to get the most of the biggest boost from Coach Bud. So there's a bet out under team specials again at DraftKings. Those are really fun. I wrote up in a little article about those as well if you want to go check that out. Bradley Beal to score 20 plus points and the Suns to win the division. It's funny, I had the Sun here. I'm in WNBA mode. The Phoenix Suns, singular. You can get that at plus 1,200 at DraftKings. I think these are very correlated. Again, we talk about this over and over again with these team specials, trying to find the ones that are overly correlated. If Beal is back and he plays 41 games, remember that's part of these bets. They have to play 41 games. If he's playing 41 plus games and averaging 20 plus points, it means he's getting up threes. It means he's running with the second unit and having success, and they are really floating. That division bet in general is a bet that I like. I'm with you on liking the Suns a lot of different ways. So getting 12-1 on this, one of my favorite bets of the whole pod. Shout out to a friend who's not even a big bettor who sent this a long way. So shout out Aaron for eagle eyes on that bet.
Yeah, I was surprised at this one. I was like, really, Bradley Beal? And I looked, and actually, second half of the season, his points per game were way up from the first half. He just had an awful, awful playoff
Yeah.
run. But I like how this one lines up for you. Warriors Suns for me. I was looking a lot of ways to bet for the division. I bet them in like exact 1-2 either direction. You can do the dual forecast sort of thing. Those are the teams in that division that I'm high on. A team that we have, I think, almost begrudgingly this high on our list. Like the vibes are real bad right now. Is just out of respect for Nikola Jokic that the Denver Nuggets are still in our top 5 here. We're down to our last 5, 10 more bets to go, Jim. Where are you at on this year's Denver Nuggets?
I lied again. I keep saying that I'm done with this. This truly is. I'm now looking at all this. Truly is last. And all under again. And honestly, I gave under 40 and a half plus 215. I'm almost intrigued by to miss the playoffs, but I can't with Jokic. He's just so good. But I do think the vibes are horrendous in Denver. I think Jamal Murray, I don't know what's going on there. He flashed so much potential. I don't know if it's injury stuff or if it's whatever it is, but man, does it look bad right now. Malone and Jokic keep going over the win total year after year. So, I'm the idiot going back to the well here after they burned us last year. I just don't know how Denver from top to bottom can look at last season, how they burned themselves out at the end of the season, chasing a seed that they didn't even end up getting the number 1 seed. And then it didn't even end up mattering because they lost in the postseason at home. I think that they are going to be fine in the high 40s, just getting to the postseason. And then they have the talent. They have the best player in the playoffs. So arguably they can make a run. But the vibes are bad here. We had him at the 5th highest contender because of, we love Jokic. We both think he's consensus easily hands down the best player. Yeah. Everything else is trash.
It's not great. I do not feel great about this team right now. My bet is I'm going to play actually one of my favorite long shots on this. If you are listening, you're thinking everything you're giving out is long shots. I don't know where you've been on my podcast. Everything I give out is long shots. This is a 50-1. It's at DraftKings, not one of those under team specials. Russell Westbrook, 13 points a game, 6 assists a game, 6 rebounds a game. It's 50-1. I think that is an outlandish number for a dude who is Mr. Counting Stats. The only thing we know about Russell Westbrook is that he just does stuff when he's out there. Last year, he only played 22 minutes a game. He still was at 11, 5, and 5. So, like, one more minute, and he gets the last point, rebound, and assist, and gets us over the line there. If you look at his per 36 numbers, basically we need 30-ish minutes a game to hit this every year since 2015 for Westbrook. I think we get to, like, 26 minutes a game. I think we get there. It's literally just a minutes bet because we know if Westbrook's on the court, he's going to do stuff. Like, I don't need to tell you that part of it. So it's kind of a bet against Jamal Murray, to be honest. I think Murray's going to sit sometimes. I think sometimes Jokic will sit too, and we're going to get like a Westbrook triple-double night in Denver randomly, which would be super weird, and I don't want anything to do with the postseason. Don't need it. It's just a regular season bet here. So we might even get a bunch of like random Westbrook starts where we're racking up some numbers. 13, 6, and 6, 50-1. I played Westbrook 6th man of the year at 32-1. I think it's like 20-1. I still like that as well. I don't know how I like the fit. I like the numbers. I think this is a crazy number for Russell Westbrook Counting Stats at 50-1.
Man, I absolutely love that one. I absolutely love that. I did not, that one skipped past my eye, but I'm going to play it right after we're done here.
Yeah, you got to have that one. Another one that the vibes are not necessarily splendid on either, the East version perhaps of the Nuggets with their star center, Joel Embiid. It's the Philadelphia 76ers. You're betting on another center on the Sixers. What's your bet here?
This is my single favorite bet of the podcast, and I feel bad because we almost like theoretically could have gotten this under an hour, but I want to take a minute here because this is my favorite bet. I'm going to do a little quiz for you here, or not a quiz. I'm going to just read some names. So here were the per minute rebound leaders last season. It's going to be a little bit long list because I want to show you how many good names are here. Anthony Davis, 12.8. Victor Wembanyama, 12.9. I'm counting upwards here. Jonas Valanciunas, 13.5. Rudy Gobert, 13.6. Domantas Sabonis, 13.8. Jalen Duren, 14.4. These are the best of the best here. Yusuf Nurkic, 14.5. Clint Capella, 14.8. Day'Ron Sharpe, 15.2. Hold that, forget that. But here is the leader at 18.9 rebounds per 36 last season. Andre Drummond, he averaged 9 rebounds a game in 17 minutes. Now he gets to be the backup center to a center who's already saying he's not going to play back-to-backs. So that's when he's, 20 plus games a season, Drummond's going to be out there a decent amount. If he gets even close to 25 minutes a game, he's going to be very, very much in the running for this. You can get Drummond to lead the league in rebounds per game at plus 7,500 at FanDuel. I teased this earlier this week saying to Matt, I wanted to see his reaction to it. He actually loved it. I thought he was going to give me crap.
Oh.
Matt was in on it. He's like, oh, I love this. This might be my favorite bet of mine on the podcast for the whole series of, what do we call it? Extravaganza, futures, whatever.
The Blitz extravaganza.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you got to love the upside of if Embiid plays 39 games again and suddenly Drummond is starting and playing like 34 minutes a game, you are really loving your ticket at that point. So my bet is a kind of a similar leaning. I'm just going to keep it easy. I'll play 20-1 to miss the playoffs. I don't think I need to make the case very much. It's just Embiid, to me, doesn't look right still yet. He did not look right at the Olympics. We already know now he's saying he's not going to play back-to-backs. PG is already hurt. We held our breath already this week. The season hasn't started, and 2 of the 3 stars are already injured. PG, I don't think is what he once was. I didn't like the roster additions. Drummond, Reggie Jackson, Kyle Lowry, Eric Gordon, Caleb Martin. I did not like that depth on that team. If the stars aren't healthy, it could go really sideways here. And I'm playing the missed playoffs because if you made the play-in, it's probably because Embiid wasn't healthy or isn't healthy. And so you're more likely to lose out of the play-in also. So 20-1, it's a long tail down bet on the Sixers. Look, we gave them 4th. We're giving them title chances. Don't hate us, Philly fans. There's just a lot of ways it can go very sideways also. I think we do need to spend a little time on this third team on our list here. Definitely not as high as the market would say. The market has the Milwaukee Bucks 8th among favorites at plus 1,400. They're 3rd on our list. They're 2nd on my list, actually. They tied for 2nd in our rankings with the Thunder. You have a Bucks and Thunder bet.
Yeah, this is a team that it feels like they are getting slept on in part because of really bad timing on injuries to Giannis the last 2 seasons. He's actually played a decent amount of regular season games, and then the last 2 postseasons, he's had very bad luck in timing. I think if this team is healthy, they are very much in contention in the East. They are a little bit older. Chris Middleton did have that double ankle surgery I don't love, but they brought in some interesting depth on the wing that I actually think is a lot better than the wing depth that they have had in recent seasons. And I do think this is the Giannis revenge tour season. I think the biggest thing with him is going to be timing that health and making sure he is healthy for the postseason. But if he is healthy, I think this team can definitely come out of the East. And I don't think they're being priced correctly at all. My best bet is calling my shot here. Preseason, I'm going, the Matt Moore finals exact, Thunder over Bucks 60-1 at FanDuel. We'll talk about the Thunder in a little bit, and I love betting them every single way possible. So this is also a little bit of a Thunder bet, but I very much could see these 2 teams being the teams that come out of their conferences. I think at the numbers that each has, those are my 2 favorite bets. So it's fun to just call your shot preseason. This is like, you put $5 on it, and once every 10 years it hits and you're like, hey, I got this 60-1, called my shot exactly. This year I'm calling Thunder over Bucks exact plus 6,000 at FanDuel.
Yeah, well, and I think too, if you get the Bucks and the Thunder in the conference finals, now you've got some real options for hedging and adding to your position as well, if we're right on the Bucks. And so it's really interesting to me. My bet is also a title future. These are the only 2 title futures either of us gave out on a podcast with 60 bets, both involving the Bucks. I think that should be telling to listeners. I don't want regular season outcomes for the Bucks. I don't know what I make of this team in the regular season. I'm on Cavs division, as always. That's another one of my annual losers I love to give out. I think, though, that the Bucks, are the 2nd most likely champion, mostly because of the East. The West is a bloodbath. I do like the Thunder. I do like the teams over there, but you're going to have to win 3 tough series. In the East, it's totally possible the Bucks really only have to beat the Celtics, which is not a nothing, but we don't know. The Celtics haven't played a team like the Bucks yet in the playoffs, certainly not in the East, last year's version. So what I like about the Bucks, I like what they did with the roster. They did not have a lot of flexibility. They brought in DeLon Wright. I think that's a great point of attack defender. Gary Trent Jr., the shooter that they needed. Taurean Prince, not a guy I love, but I think a good like Chris Middleton light sort of guy for the games that he misses. This for me is not just a bet on Giannis. If you're betting on the Bucks, we already know what Giannis is. We already know he has to be healthy. This is a bet on Dame. And if Dame is still in there, and not the version we saw last year, but the truly MVP caliber player the year before, the one they thought they're trading for, then I think that the Bucks are really in the mix. So my bet is Giannis to win Finals MVP at BetMGM. It's 20-1. If they win the Finals It's Giannis MVP. I know
Yeah.
I just said the Dame stuff, but it's Giannis. That is a proxy ticket. Rather than 14 to 1, I get 20 to 1. Mavs title odds are 10 to 1. Wolves title odds are 10 to 1. You're telling me the Bucks winning a title are twice as long as one of those? I don't see it, man, especially with those teams on the West, the Bucks in the East. I don't know how we got here, but the Bucks are the one team you and I are in on our title race. We're down to our last two teams. No real surprises who they are, or I think at this point how we're betting them. I'm out of breath. I was going to go first on this one, but I'm going to have to let you lead us off on the Oklahoma City Thunder. What do you got?
Yeah, there are a few teams here where I was really digging deep, giving out Bam Adebayo player props in the month of October, where I was really scrounging. The Oklahoma City Thunder, the opposite. I had about a dozen different ways I bet them. My favorite is, once again, one of these team specials, pairing two bets that I love and have bet singularly and getting them together because they're two bets I love. Now I get them parlayed, and I think they are partially correlated. This one maybe less so. This is just two bets I love though. It's Shea to lead the league in points per game and the Thunder to win the West, plus 2,000 at DraftKings. Shea, I talked about this when I gave this out on the podcast earlier. It's centered around a couple of things. Luka was at career high minutes last season. I think his minutes might come down just a tiny bit, and he has more weapons around him. I think his points per game could come down a little bit. And then the flip side of it, you get the insanely high floor with Shea. We all heard about the number of times he scored exactly 31 points in a game, but there's also the Giddey impact too. The on-off numbers with Giddey, PBB stats, 35.1 points per 100 possessions with Giddey on the court, 49.9 points per 100 possessions with him off. So Shea is going to have the ability to put up points in insane numbers. The only thing that scares me with this bet is the potential for them to blow out so many teams that his minutes, he's not playing fourth quarters, or he's not, he's in assist mode in the fourth quarter because they're up 15 and he's fine with it. But the putting these two together, a Thunder team that I love in the West, even though it is a bloodbath of a Western Conference, I really, really like the Thunder. I think that the only thing holding people back is the fact that they think that they haven't done it yet. And that's always a team I like to bet on, a team that their biggest flaw is that they haven't accomplished it yet. To me, that is actually an edge for a bettor, because we see teams that constantly have not done it yet do it. And then it's like, oh, well, now I'll bet on them. It's like, well, no, you've missed the time to bet on them.
Right.
So that is my favorite Thunder bet, but I'm all over them in a variety of ways. Love Shea MVP, love him just to lead the league in points per game, love a lot of Jalen Williams stuff. His most improved player of the year award, that's one I think maybe you'll touch on here, but that's one of my favorites as well. So much Thunder love this season. I'm sure it won't burn me with the trendy hipster team that I'm all aboard with everyone else.
Yeah, the Celtics had never actually finished the job and won a title. We never seen a title team with a player like Jason Tatum, best player, and now we have.
Yep.
We've never seen Nikola Jokic win a title. Now we have. We've never seen Giannis come through in the playoffs. Now we have. You're absolutely right. That now we have is the team you want to bet on before it happens, not afterward. I'm going to bet. These are my two favorite award bets on the entire award circuit show. So you can hear the longer case on last week's Friday episode. But Shea to win MVP, now at 5 to 1. Jalen Williams, most improved, now at 15 to 1. I had those at 6 to 1 and at 22 to 1. I still love them at these numbers. Here's the real quick case for you. MVP, you want a 25 points a game guy, top 3 seed, age 24 to 28, an established star. That's Shea. Checks every single box. The crazy thing for me is I'm actually not as high on the Thunder, anywhere nearly as high as you. I downgraded them. I moved them down on both sides of the ball. They're still my 1 seed in the West. And I was like, dang, if I still have this team as the 1 seed, even playing conservatively, then I have to take seriously their guys. And that's Shea, where if you're the 1 seed, even with a downgrade, I might be wrong. I was wrong on this team last year. They were better earlier than I thought. So even if I'm right about them being down, he's still in the mix. If I'm wrong, he's really in the mix. He's the runaway then at that point. The defense is good. We know the advanced metrics will be good because of that. That's kind of a quiet little boost in there. I would put Shea around plus 200 to win MVP. I think MVP is priced terribly. Favorites win this award. Guys that we know are near the top win this award. I love him there. And J-Dub. My J-Dub. Top 25 in my Elite 100. This is actually another Josh Giddey stat. You gave yours out with Shea. When Giddey is on last season, J-Dub was at 21% usage. When he was off, J-Dub jumped to 29%. That is a 37% usage increase. I think we're going to get a lot more of him this year. Just more both of those guys, honestly. Great for both of my bets here. Just more handling, more shooting. He's a 40% career three-point shooter. That's great. Except in the playoffs where I was like, shoot the ball, what are you doing? He only took 3.5 attempts a game. I think he's going to shoot a little bit more. We're already seeing a little bit more of J-Dub just doing stuff in the preseason. He's just a good all-around player, good defender. The metrics check out, the BPMs, the EPMs. You and I both love the all-star bet for J-Dub, 5-1 at DraftKings, especially with the wonky Chet shot now. The Thunder, are, if they're the 1 seed, they're going to need a second all-star. So I think J-Dub fits that mix. We know second all-star puts you in the most improved player position. I like both of these bets. Now, I would not parlay them together. I think books probably won't let you anyways because they're the same team. I don't know if they both hit, but I do think there's a really good chance that one of them hits because the team is going to be that good. I think they can both hit too. I think Shea would win MVP regardless. Like that's the crown award. If he's going to win, he's just going to win. But I think if J-Dub is that good for them also and makes the breakout to like a 25 points a game guy and the clear number 2 on the team, I don't really see any reason why they wouldn't do that. We've seen multiple award winners to a team. We've seen a guy win multiple awards before too. So I would not parlay those as like a double down play, but I absolutely will play both of them. My favorite awards. Our last team, obviously the most likely champion on the board, the Boston Celtics. You and I have the exact same bet. We made it fast in case we need to get out of here, but we didn't quite make our 1 hour cut. What is our bet on the Celtics?
It's really boring. It's probably not too surprising to folks either. We talked about being low on the Knicks. We talked about being low on the Sixers. Guess what that means? Boston division. This team has one of the highest floors of any team I can remember in recent history. They are in a division where I think the 2 teams right behind them, chasing them down, are overpriced. Minus 140 kind of broke my brain when I saw it. I do think part of it is people don't love laying minus 140 for 6 months of a return, but I don't mind it. If the odds are not correct, the implied odds of that are, to me, way off of what it should be. I think the Celtics, are like a 75-80% chance of winning the division with 2 teams behind them that I really am not nearly as high on. Minus 140 is a little bit painful to put away for 6 months, but if you are a absurd futures better, and if you are an hour and 10 minutes into this podcast, I'm assuming you are, I really love the Celtics minus 140 on the division. Boring bet, but kind of a boring team again, even though they're like the best team in basketball, a little bit boring at times. So a fitting end, not fitting end to an interesting pod, but fitting bet for the Celtics, I'll say.
Yeah, we just got to get some winners out there too. So this is my same bet, the division odds at minus 140, basically the same case as you. I have Boston anywhere from 57 to 66 wins. The high end outcome for me on the Sixers and Knicks is 55 and 53. So like that's the 90th percentile outcome. You're still not getting to the bottom 10th percentile outcome for Boston. I'm surprised the number that you gave. I thought I was going to be the high man. I also have them about 80% to win the division. So that should be a minus 400 here. That makes minus 140 sound pretty good. So if you are the sort of bettor that likes to do those division parlays, this is the one that you would normally add in. And I'd be like, no, don't just take the big favorite. That's not the way to do it. This is the way to do it. Put the Celtics in all your parlays. Not all of them. That's crazy. But this is the one to add in and do some other things. This is the bet. Look, it's regular season. I don't think either one of us is out on the Celtics by any means, or that we think that they're a terrible team or whatever. We put them number 1. There will be other times to buy the Celtics. You're buying at peak value right now on futures, on win totals, and everything else. I think the division is playable because of the Sixers and the Knicks. I think the other bets we will talk plenty about on Buckets this year. There will be other moments for the Celtics. You can't have everything, Boston fans. Just go look at the banners instead. You'll be happy. That's it. We're out. 60 futures bets in 60 minutes. The haters said it couldn't be done. The haters were right. We got pretty close, though. Don't forget, if you haven't yet, make sure to get the Action Network app, the award-winning app, where at some point when I have time, I will put 1 billion of these picks into there. So get those notifications on. Get a pro subscription if you haven't yet. Some of these are moving already. Some of these will move once they hit the app. Make sure to follow myself, Jim Turvey, our whole Buckets crew on there. If you are not watching on YouTube, watch us on YouTube, youtube.com/The Action Network. And you can see Jim Turvey's WNBA sweatshirt. Jim, how about a bonus pick? Who's going to win the WNBA finals?
I'm sticking with my Liberty. I do think that game 1 was devastating. But if you look outside of that little choke job of an end of that game, they have looked like the better team. They're who I was on from the start. I'm just hoping that there's a game 5 because I'm going to try and get down there if there is. I would love to see New York basketball bring back its first title in 50 plus years. Barclays Arena, Barclays Center, Barclays whatever has been absolutely incredible the entire postseason run. So my rooting is just give me 5 games so I can go watch this in person.
All right, go Lynx. That's what I have to say about that. 61 futures in 60 minutes. We did it. Look, we give out some bonus bets. I think it's more like 75 futures in 75 minutes. That's why we needed the extra time. We did it. Thanks to our producer, David Payne. Thanks to Matt Moore for letting us do this ridiculous podcast. Thanks to all of you for listening. Hope you get a whole bunch of those bets in there. The season starts on Tuesday night. We are excited. We'll be back with more Buckets episodes. I will be back next Friday with Joe Delera to run it back. We're getting out. We're going to talk about what we think about every team in the NBA. In under 60 minutes, we're doing it again. That's it. Let's get buckets.